Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Namaha. We are studying the Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, as the spiritual teacher, second part, and we are in the second chapter, and we have read up to para 30. Now some particular brilliant examples are coming where Thakur acted as a personal guru. And we come to para 31. Some of the learned aspirants that came to the master at Dakshineshwar in those days were, owing to their excessive devotion, initiated in mantras and even in sannyasa by him before they left. So, in some mantras also. So, Thakur's initiated disciple, who is first, will be difficult to find out. Sannyasi disciples, Narayan Shastri seems to be the first. Pandit Narayan Shastri was one of them. We are told by the master himself that the Pandit lived with his teachers like the orthodox brahmacharis of ancient days and studied various shastras continuously for 25 years. From where he had come, Rajasthan people know him well. In Khetri, so many people tell about Narayan Shastri. He had always a strong desire to have equal knowledge of and mastery over all the 6 darshanas. So a little commentary on this is necessary. In India, there are several darshanas, but they are divided into 2 categories, orthodox and unorthodox. Or, what is the name? Atheist? No, theist is God only. Now, in technical language, Astik and Nastik darshan. Now, Astik darshanas does not mean believing in God. Astik darshanas mean believing in the Vedas. And that is orthodox. And unorthodox are not believing in the Vedas. Now, among the Astik darshanas, all do not believe in the Vedas equally. That thing which is necessary, they take from Vedas. Otherwise, they apply their own buddhi, their present experience or higher experience and buddhi. And what is not solved there, they take from the Vedas. There are 2 darshanas which are based 100% on the Vedas. What is called Jaiminins, Purva Mimamsa Shastra or Dharma Mimamsa, they base themselves fully on the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. And then it goes by the name of Vyasa. Vyasa's Uttara Mimamsa Shastra, Mimamsa means analysis. Uttara Mimamsa Shastra, which goes by the name of Vedanta, because it is based purely on the Jnana Kanda or Upanishad or Vedanta of the Vedas. Now, but people, to get a knowledge of all the thought currents of the world, used to study all these six darshanas. So, when six darshanas are mentioned, I told you which are the six. Let me tell the names. Believing in the Vedas little more in their own, our present experience is Nyaya Darshana and Vaisheshika Darshana. Their level is same, though they differ in their views to some extent. Then believing more in the Vedas, but final judgment by their buddhi. And they believe in all these subtle things told in the Vedas. That is Patanjali's Yoga Darshana and Kapila's Sankhya Darshana. They are mutually dependent also. Nyaya and Vaisheshika also are mutually dependent. They are also mutually dependent. And that is the second stage. And then I told you already, Purva Mimamsa or Karma Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa are Veda. These are the six darshanas. So, he wanted to have a thorough knowledge of all six darshanas. He had always a strong desire to have equal knowledge of and mastery over all the six darshanas and lived with different teachers at Kashi and other places in the northwestern part of the country. Here Punjab is not meant. Kashi was the known place where you can learn. And other places in the northwestern part of the country and had the complete mastery of five of them. But if he did not finish his study of the Nyaya philosophy with the well-known teachers of Nyaya at Navadvip in Bengal, he could not have complete mastery over that system and so could not be regarded as one of the eminent scholars of Nyaya. He therefore had come to this part of the country about 8 years before he visited the master at Dakshineshwar. They included in that 25. He lived for 7 years at Navadvip and finished his studies in the Nyaya philosophy. He was ready to go home. Perhaps he entertained doubts whether he would be able to visit these parts of the country over again. So he came to see Calcutta and visited Dakshineshwar, situated near that city, when he had the privilege of meeting the master. That is how he met the master. The antecedents of Sri Shastri, that is given here. Sri Shastri had been known as a scholar in the country even before he came to Bengal to study Nyaya. Hearing the name of Sri Shastri at one time, the Maharaj of Jaipur, we were told by the master himself, had a desire to appoint him as his court pandit and respectfully invited him with the promise of a high salary. But Sri Shastri's thirst for knowledge had not yet been quenched, and his eager desire for getting complete mastery over the six orthodox schools of Indian philosophy yet remained unfulfilled. So he had to reject the Maharaja's cordial invitation. Sri Shastri, we infer, belonged formerly to some province near Rajputana. Old name of Rajasthan is Rajputana and not near Rajputana. He belonged to Rajputana. That is now known. 33. He finished that study and had the privilege of meeting the master. Narayan Shastri was not like ordinary scholars. Detachment from the world was gradually growing in his heart, along with the knowledge of the scriptures. And that is how he could remain as a brahmachari and all that. Detachment. Detachment is generally anasakti. The original is vairagya. Vairagya in English should be dispassion. Dispassion is a force stronger than detachment. From the world was gradually growing in his heart along with the knowledge of the scriptures. He could clearly understand that, especially in Vedanta, though he is studying Nyaya now, he could clearly understand that no one could have real mastery of the Vedanta and other scriptures by mere study without practice. These days, some people say that you don't require anything. Anyway, therefore, even before he finished his studies, there arose in his mind from time to time. So, two currents are there. One is philosophical knowledge, one is vairagya. I am afraid I am not acquiring right knowledge in this way. I will practice sadhana for some time and try to realize what the scriptures say. But he suppressed the desire of engaging himself in sadhana and applied his mind again to his studies, lest he should lose both by thus giving up half finished a subject which he had been trying to master. Now, as he had acquired a thorough knowledge of the six philosophical systems, that long cherished desire of his was fulfilled. He now wanted to return home. He had already decided in his mind that he would do what was considered proper on his going back home. At this auspicious moment of his life, he met the master, and as soon as he saw him, he felt drawn towards him, rather in a mysterious way. So, adhikar is being told here. We already said that at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, there were good arrangements for the boarding and lodging of guests, fakirs. What are fakirs? Muslim sadhus. Sadhus, sannyasis, pandits, and so on. No wonder, therefore, that he was respectfully allowed to live there as long as he liked. For besides being a Brahmin brahmacharin belonging to a distant part of the land, he was a good scholar. It was a beautiful place providing food and other necessities and affording the company of such a god man. So there has to be many places where the food and other things are taken care of. In Himalaya, we will find many such places. Sri Shastri made up his mind to spend some time there before going away. And what else could he do? The more intimately he mixed with the master, the more did a certain feeling of love for him grow in his heart. Embodiment of Vedanta. So love grew here. And the more intensely did a desire to know him deeper and deeper grew in him. About this, I'll tell something. Mahapurush Maharaj asked a sannyasi, what are you doing? He said, I'm studying Vedanta. It is good, but can you study our lives like that? That is what he told. So Vedanta is personified in the manner of realization. So that has to be studied deeply, as we are trying to do after so many years. The master too expressed his joy on getting the simple-hearted, magnanimous Shastri for a companion and spent much time with him in conversation about God. Shastri's resolve owing to the divine company of the master. Shastri had read about the seven planes of spoken of at the Vedanta. That is mentioned in the Yoga Vasishta. He knew from the study of the scriptures that as soon as the mind ascended to higher and higher planes of consciousness, there came wonderful experience and visions followed at last by the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And it was in that state that man got merged in the immediate experience of the reality of Brahman, the indivisible existence knowledge bliss itself, and that the delusions of the world clinging to him for ages without beginning vanished altogether. He saw that the master had the immediate knowledge of what Shastriji merely had read about in the books and got by heart. He found that God read in the books and got by heart. He found that he himself merely uttered the words, samadhi, immediate knowledge, etc. What is immediate knowledge? In Sanskrit, aparokchandava. Immediate does not mean time-wise immediate. Without any mediacy, we see external things by our eyes. What is in the mind, we do not require the eyes, and eyes cannot reach there. We see with therefore the mind itself. But what is our real nature? Mind cannot go there, nor mind is required there. So this word is there, immediate, without any mediacy. That God itself we can realize through God, etc. While the master was actually experiencing what they meant, at any time during day and night in course of his conversation about God. So when he was doing some conversation about God, he was entering into those states. Shastri thought, how wonderful. Where else shall I have such a person to teach and explain the hidden meanings of the Shastra? Hidden means Sukshma. This opportunity must not be missed. The means of immediate knowledge of Brahman must be obtained from him at any cost. Life is uncertain indeed. Who knows when this body will come to an end? Shall I die before attaining right knowledge? That cannot be. So the idea of Shastric knowledge is vanishing. At least one sincere effort to realize God must be made. Let home and all that go for the present. In this, I will tell a funny incident. Swamiji took select disciples to Thousand Island Park. And he said, since most of you are Christians, I will start with the Christian scripture. And Christ has said, lest ye first seek the kingdom of heaven, everything else shall be added unto you. Swamiji read first half. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. And said, let everything else go to hell. So Narayan Shastri is telling, let home and all that go for the present. Okay. Shastriji felt detachment, vairagya. As days passed on, detachment, dispassion, and eagerness to know truth grew more and more in Shastriji as a result of the divine company of the Master. The desires such as, you see, Anurag Vak Thakur said. That means in the forest there are many animals, but the tiger swallows up smaller animals. So when the love for God increases, all other desires go away. The desires such as I shall startle all by my scholarship, I shall become a Mahamopadhyaya, and acquire name, position, fame, etc., more than others, appear to be contemptible aims of life to be shunned. So not only insipid, Vairagya is telling that they are contemptible aims of life. They are to be shunned and avoided by all means. And they gradually vanished altogether from his mind. Shastriji lived with the master like a disciple in a mood of true humility, listened attentively to his nectar-like words and thought. The mind must not be applied anymore to anything else. There is no knowledge when the body will meet with its end. Now when there is a time, efforts must be made to realize God. He reflected on the master, how free from anxiety he lives, knowing what one should know, how free from anxiety he lives, knowing what one should know and understand in life. Even death has been conquered by him. It can no longer hold before him the horrible shadow of the night of destruction. Whether death or pralaya has no effect on the man. He knows he cannot die. Well, the author of the Upanishad says that all the wishes of such great souls become fulfilled, and that if one can truly obtain their grace, one's desire of experiencing the world again and again vanishes, and one attains the knowledge of Brahman. In Mundaka Upanishad, this is clearly stated that if you have any desire, you worship a Brahmagya with that desire, serve him. And if you serve him without desire, you will get Nirvikal Samadhi. If you can truly obtain their grace, why should I not take refuge in him? Shastriji went on pondering this way and lived with the master at Dakshineshwar. But he could not all on a sudden make any request to him, lest he should consider him to be unfit and refuse to take him under his shelter. Time rolled on thus. A man who is fully adhikari always feels he is defeated. Shastriji was annoyed to speak with Michael Madhusudan. One incident happened in between. Michael Madhusudan Dutt is a famous poet of Bengal, famous scholar, well-known, converted to Christianity. Madhusudan, but Michael. The following event proves that detachment from the world was becoming intense in Shastri's mind day and day. Everywhere it should be dispassion. Michael Madhusudan Datta, a great and glorious poet of Bengal, was at that time conducting a case on behalf of, he was a great advocate also, though he was a poet, conducting a case on behalf of Prasmani. One day he had to come to the Dakshineshwar Kali temple with a descendant of the Rani in order to know everything about the case precisely. After he had finished his business regarding the case, he came to know in the course of the conversation that the master was there and expressed a desire to see him. When word was sent to the master, he at first sent Shastriji to speak with Madhusudan and himself went a little after. While he was talking with him, Narayan Shastri asked him the reason why he gave up his own religion and accepted that of Jesus. Michael said in reply that financial pressure compelled him to do so. We cannot say whether reluctant to reveal his own story to a stranger, he replied to question in that manner. You understand why Saradananda is commenting like this? They are a great poet, advocate and all that. And what could have been the reason? Because he was influenced. No, that is not the reason. Otherwise, Saradananda need not have written this sentence. Because the days were such that more learned people used to think that Christianity is better. They were influenced by the Christian teachers. That is the reason. But he said that for stomach I am doing this. Therefore, Saradananda Swami is adding this sentence. We cannot say whether reluctant to reveal their own story to a stranger, he replied to the question in that manner. But it appeared to the master and the others present that he was actually speaking out his own mind and did not say so by way of joke or sarcasm to hide the truth about himself. At that time it appeared genuinely speaking like that. Be that as it may, Shastriji became much annoyed with him to hear that answer. He said, what? To give up one's own religion for the sake of maintaining oneself in this ephemeral world? What a mean consideration. Die one must someday. You should rather have died. He said like that, eh? He thought, and yet people call him a great man and read his books with appreciation. A great abhorrence came upon Shastriji's mind and it desisted from speaking any more to him. The conversation between the master and Michael. Madhusudan then expressed a desire to listen to some religious instruction from the master. So he had faith in all that. So this little doubtful in the mind, Saradananda Swami just expressed. The master said to us, so Thakur himself is telling, my mouth was pressed as it were by someone and I was not allowed to speak anything. Hriday and some others say that mood of the master left him a little afterwards. That means master is firstly in synchrony with Narayan Shastri. But then because the request was sincere, he opened. And he moved Madhusudan's mind by singing in his sweet voice a few songs of Ramprasad, Kamalakanta and other eminent sadhakas and taught him thereby that devotion to God was the only essential thing in the world. Shastriji wrote his own opinion on the wall. It had so much impressed him. Even after Michael had bidden goodbye, Sri Shastri discussed and denounced Michael's playing the renegade and wrote with a piece of charcoal in big letters on the wall of the veranda to the east of the door leading to the master's room that to give up one's own religion under the stress of one's monetary needs was a very mean act. Sri Shastri's opinion on this matter, written on the wall in distinct big Bengali characters, attracted our notice and produced curiosity in us. You know something inside? Thakur has allowed that to remain there on the wall, did not get it dropped because it's an important thing. Let others also see. Every sentence has an inner meaning. One day we made an inquiry and came to know everything. As Sri Shastri had lived in this part of the country for a long time, he had learned Bengali very well. Shastriji was initiated in sannyas and practiced austerities. Now comes the last thing known in Sri Shastri's life. One day he happened to meet the master in a secluded place, took that opportunity to express the desire of his heart and insisted tenaciously that he should be initiated in sannyas. To practice Vedanta, the initial step is to get into sannyas. The master agreed on account of his eagerness and initiated him on an auspicious day. After that, Shastriji left the Kali temple because the sannyasi should be moving about. He expressed to the master the desire of his heart that he would make a strenuous effort to realize Brahman at Vasishtha Ashrama. No, I am thinking of that. Vasishtha Guha is same as Vasishtha Ashrama. Till his aim was fulfilled. That Guha is for Vasishtha to practice austerity. But Vasishtha must be having an ashram, big ashram. Dissolved in tears, he asked for the master's blessings, worshipped his feet, and left Dakshineshwar behind forever. No certain news of Narayan Shastri was received after this. Some say that he lived at Vaisheshashrama practicing severe austerities, which resulted in a physical disease due to which he died. Is it so? Rajasthan people know much more. कठोर तपश्चरण करिते करिते तार शरीर रोगाक्रांत है एवं वही रोगी तार मृत्यु है. This is about Narayan Shastri. So, senior than Swami Vivekananda and others. It was natural with the master to pay visit to monks and aspirants. So, we are meeting now another great Pandit and sadhak, Pandit Padmalochan. Again, the master felt a desire to see the monks, aspirants, and devotees of all communities whenever he heard of their stay in the neighborhood. That is their life were invigorated. When he felt that desire, he used to go unasked to them and spend some time in talks about God. He did not respect and all that. At that time, no consideration such as would people think ill or well of it. Would the sadhaka unknown to me be pleased to or displeased with me a visit, or would I myself be properly respected, would ever cross his mind. He would go somehow or other to the aspirants and would not rest till he had formed a correct idea regarding the spiritual attitude. That was the main point. Their progress toward the goal and other relevant matters. The master also behaved very often in the same way when he heard of scholars learned in the scriptures who were also aspired. Not mere scholars. Sadhakas are scholars who were also aspirants. He paid such visits to Pandit Padmalochan, Dayananda Saraswati, and many others, and narrated stories about their lives to us now and then. We are now going to tell the reader about Padmalochan first of all. The reason why the Nyaya philosophy entered Bengal. We have just now heard that Narayan Shastri wanted to learn Nyaya as developed in Navadvip of Bengal. The study of the Vedanta was very rare in Bengal before the advent of the master. Although Acharya Shankar had defeated the tantrics of this province in theological polemic, debate, theological means about nature of God and all that, many centuries ago, he could scarcely establish his own doctrine among the people in general. That means Tantric scholars he has debated and showed that Vedanta is highest, but that has not percolated to the public. Consequently, the Tantras accepted as true the radical principle of no. So, what the Tantras did, absorb something of the Vedanta. Tantras accepted as true the radical principle of non-dualism spoken of in the Vedanta, introduced a little of it into their own process of meditation, and prescribed worship and other ceremonies among the public as before. And the Pandits of Bengal devoted to the whole energy of their fertile brain to the study of the Nyaya philosophy, created the Navya Nyaya, neologic, and brought about an extraordinary revolution in the realm of that system. Why? Was it due to the fact that the people of Bengal were defeated and humiliated in argumentation by Shankara, that the study of that philosophy became so much prevalent among them? We will perfect our logic system. Shankara has defeated us in logic. Who can say? But many a time has the world witnessed it that defeated in a certain field by a particular nation, the defeated humiliated a nursed a desire and made an effort to surpass all in that same field. Nation. Anyway, that is the Bengali method. Now he has introduced this, that there were some Vedanti Pandits. To tell that, he told Vedanta was rare and Nyaya was developed more. Padmalochan, and that is why Narayan Shastri had come to study Nyaya. Padmalochan, the Vedantic scholar. Although the study of the Vedanta was so scarce in Bengal, the nursery of Tantra and Nyaya, nursery means from there the plants grow and then they go elsewhere. It was not as if no one was attracted to the study of the liberal conclusions of the Vedanta. Saradananda Swamiji mentions liberal doctrines of the Vedanta. And if some Vedantis become non-liberal, the present set of Vedantis, Pandit Padmalochan was one who was attracted. After he had acquired efficiency in Nyaya, the Pandit had a desire to study the Vedanta. He went to Kashi, lived with his teachers, and studied that philosophy for a long time. Thereupon he became famous as a Vedantin in a few years. On his return home, he was invited by the Maharaja of Burdwan. There were princely states there, and was appointed as a court Pandit. As the wonderful genius of the Pandit went on unfolding, he was gradually promoted to the post of the principal court Pandit. His fame spread throughout Bengal. An example of the wonderful genius of the Pandit. So Vedanta infuses broadness in man. Absolute truth is one, but below it there can be several opinions. It will not be out of place here to mention it, a remark by the Pandit indicative of the wonderful genius. And this broadness is called genius. Expatiating on the theme that narrow opinions in spiritual matters were due to meanness of nature, the master sometimes quoted to us the Pandit's remarks on the subject. That is Thakur's habit. And Thakur told one-sidedness, and Thakur used to condemn being one-sided, meanness. For the extraordinary, truthful master, always remember, whatever he heard from anyone expressive of the liberal doctrine after his heart, that means Thakur liked it, and he had heard it from some Pandit, and while quoting it in the course of conversation, he mentioned the name of the person from whom he had heard it first. Who is the greater of the two, Shiva or Vishnu? Important thing. Once upon a time, the master said, there arose a great controversy among the scholars of the court, Bardhan, as to who was greater, Shiva or Vishnu. Padmalochan was not present there. The scholars who were present grew noisy in their disputation, some supporting the one and some supporting the other, according to their own knowledge of the scriptures, or perhaps according to their own temperamental beautiful expression. Either they are read only that scripture, or the bent of the mind goes towards Vishnu, and bent of the mind goes towards Shiva. Thus a quarrel went on between the two parties, the Shaivas and the Vaishnavas. No solution of the problem could be found because both have scriptures. Therefore, the principal court Pandit was summoned to decide the question. Pandit Padmalochan arrived at the assembly, and when he heard the question, he said, none of my forefathers up to the 14 generations saw either Shiva or Vishnu. You understand? Till we have the experience, we cannot decide. How can I therefore say who is superior and who is inferior? But if you want to know what the scriptures say, it has to be said that the Shaiva scriptures call Shiva the greater and the Vaishnava ones Vishnu. So one's own chosen ideal is greater than all other deities. That is how you proceed. Hmm. Acha, here something different in Bengali. No, greater than all other deities. I want to find that portion. अतएव जार जे इष्ट तार काचे সেই দেবতাই अन्य सकल देवता अपेक्षा बड़ो. So one's own chosen ideal is great. You see, the sentence is not correct. You have to add one or two words there. One's own chosen ideal is greater than all other deities for that person. That is what he wants to say. Who is greater? Shastra says this is greater, that is greater. So for you, your chosen ideal is greater. I will say, so for everyone, his chosen ideal is greater than all other deities. Yes, that will be correct. With this remark, the Pandit quoted as proofs verses indicating that both were greater than all other deities. That is accepted. Because they are not like ordinary deities. Huh? They are the Trimurti responsible for creation, preservation and destruction of the world. Creation is by Brahma, but he is not taken into consideration. This conclusion of the Pandit brought the quarrel to an end and everybody thanked him. We get a definite proof of his genius in this outspokenness and frank and unpretentious knowledge of the scriptures. He knew about the scriptures and get the clue to his great name and fame. The Pandit's love of God. It was not only because he traveled far into the great wood of multitudinous words Traveled means in the Shastra. That the Pandit became so famous. Acquainted in their daily life with the repeated manifestation of his noble qualities of liberality, non-attachment, good conduct, practice of austerities, steadfast devotion to his chosen ideal, etc., people came to the conclusion that he was an unusually great sadhaka and lover of God. The coexistence of true scholarship and profound devotion to God is rare indeed in the world. So people are attracted towards a person in whom both these are found. It was therefore no wonder that when the master heard of him, he had a desire to see that good soul who had been adorning the court of Bardhan for a long time and was approaching his old age. The nature of the master's mind, the Pandit came to Calcutta. That used to happen. When Thakur wanted to see him, he comes near. Whenever there was any desire in the master's mind, he, like a boy, became anxious to fulfill it immediately. The master's mind, like a boy, is telling, but that is due to 10% sincerity. The master's mind acquired that trait perhaps because he had taught his mind since his childhood. Life is ephemeral. Do quickly what has to be done because of this. And performed every action with intense eagerness. Again, a little thinking brings out the fact that the mind becomes endowed with that disposition as a result of practicing one-pointedness and steadfastness. As a result of this, that comes up. Anyway, seeing the master eager, Mathuranath was thinking of sending him to Vardhan. When the news came that as Pandit Padmalochan had been ill for a long time, he had been brought to a garden near Aryada on the bank of the Ganga for a change of climate, and that owing to the pure fresh air of the place, he had improved a little. So Aryada is Calcutta. Here Hriday was sent to know whether the news was true. He returned and confirmed the news. The Pandit had heard of the master and was very eager to see him. He showed great respect to Hriday, knowing that he was the relative of the master. So he was a sincere devotee also. He had heard of the master and become attracted. A day was then fixed. The master started to see the Pandit. Hriday accompanied him. The Pandit saw the master for the first time. Hriday said that the master and Padmalochan were pleased to see each other when they met for the first time. The master could find him to be a sadhaka of a liberal nature, amiable and well versed in the Shastra. The Pandit also had the conviction that the master was a great soul and was in an extraordinary state of spirituality. He could not refrain from shedding tears to hear the name of the Divine Mother sung by the master in his sweet voice. The Pandit became speechless on seeing the master lose normal consciousness in ecstasy over and over again, and on hearing what experience he had in that state. The Pandit, well versed in the scriptures, tried, we can clearly understand, to compare the spiritual states of the master with those recorded in the scripture. But it is also certain that in doing so, he felt a difficulty that day, because Thakur's experience had gone beyond Vedas and Vedanta, and could not come to any certain conclusion, for not finding the ultimate experiences of the master recorded in the Shastras. He could not perfectly ascertain whether what were written in the Shastras or the experience of the master were true. Whether this is true or that is true. Therefore, the discriminating mind of the Pandit, always accustomed to arriving at sure conclusion in all spiritual matters with the help of scriptural knowledge and keen intellect, experienced a sort of restlessness in the midst of joy, like a spot of darkness in light. The reason why the Pandit's devotion and reverence increased, the other effect happened. On account of the love and attraction which sprang up during their first acquaintance with each other, the master and Pandit met together a few times more. Consequently, the conviction of the Pandit about the master's spiritual state grew deeper and profounder. We heard from the master himself that there was a special reason why the Pandit had that firm conviction. He had a Siddha. Pandit Padmalochan had been, and Thakur did not have Siddhai. One should understand that Thakur Siddhais are more than other Pandits, that is not the reason. But how he understands their Siddhais. So that Bhavamukh comes into play here also. It is not that some people think he had more power than them. That is not the reason. The reason is that he could understand. And then that Siddha used to get merged in Thakur. And as Thakur said, Siddha is an obstruction. So when that Siddha vanished, miraculous power, then they proceeded further in their life. Pandit Padmalochan had been practicing for a long time the discipline prescribed with the Tantra, along with the Vedantic discussion on knowledge, and had some realization of the result. Several times I have told you in Bengal, Siddhante Vedanti Anushtane Tantri. The master said that the Divine Mother revealed to him the secret of the Pandit's power attained through spiritual practices. He came to know that it was only because the Devi, the Pandit's chosen ideal, was pleased with him on account of his sadhana and granted him a boon that he became invincible in innumerable meetings of scholars and could keep secure his superiority. Padmalochan had always with him a towel and a spouted pot filled with what? Commander is telling spouted pot filled with water. It was a favorite habit with him to take them in his hand, walk a few steps hither and thither, come back and wash his mouth and sprinkle his head with that water before he went forward to solve any problem. Nobody had ever any curiosity to inquire into the reason for this queer habit of his, and nobody ever thought that it had a real purpose. The Pandit never disclosed it to anybody, not even to his wife, that he used to do so according to the advice of his chosen ideas, and that when he did so, intelligence, scriptural knowledge, and presence of mind were completely awakened in him through divine grace and made him invincible to others. The Devi advised him privately in his heart of heart to do so. From that time, he followed that advice perfectly for a long time and experienced his results without the knowledge of others. The master could know the miraculous power of the Pandit. The master said that he could know all this by the grace of the Divine Mother. And one day, finding an opportunity, he concealed the Pandit's towel and spouted pot. Padmalochan could not engage himself in the solution of the problem under discussion in the absence of these things and was busy searching for them. When afterwards he came to know that the master had concealed them, his astonishment knew no bounds. When again he understood the master had come to know everything before he had done so, the Pandit could not help reciting hymns too and singing praises of the master as his own chosen idea. Because nobody else knew, Thakur knew. The Pandit came to regard him as an incarnation of God from that time and was devoted to him accordingly. The master said, though Padmalochan was so great a scholar, he had so much faith in and devotion to hear. He said, when I shall come round, I will convene a meeting of the scholars and tell them all that we are an incarnation of God. So Vaishnavacharan, Gauri, and now Padmalochan. I will see who can refute my word. Mathur at one time, for another reason, was going to convene a meeting of Dakshineshwar of all the scholars. Padmalochan, an avaricious Brahmin. You understand? He was not coveting money. And he was a Brahmin. So to go to a Shudra for money, he would not have done. Who was of a virtuous orthodox disposition, would never accept a gift from a Shudra. Thinking that he would not come to the meeting, Mathur asked me, Thakur, to request him to be present there. At the request of Mathura, I asked the Pandit affectionately, will you not come to Dakshineshwar? He said, I will go to a sweeper's house with you and take my food there. Is it too much that I should go to a meeting in the house of a person of the caste of fishermen? So, that is Thakur's influence accepted by him. The Pandit passed away in Kashi, the abode of the universal Lord. But the Pandit was not to come to the meeting, convened by the Mathur Babu. Before the meeting could be called, the physical illness increased. He bade goodbye to the master with tears in his eyes and went to Kashi. It is said he passed away there shortly after. When, important thing, when long afterward the Calcutta devotees of the master took refuge at his holy feet, long afterward, and in their exuberance of devotion, some of them were calling him publicly an incarnation. The master came to know of it and sent them word not to do so. He got the news a few days later that they had not desisted from doing so. Annoyed at this, he said to us, one is a doctor and another is the manager of a theatre, Ramchandra Datta and Girish Chandra. They come here and call me an incarnation. They think they extol me by calling me such. But what do they understand of what is called an incarnation? Long before they came here and called me an incarnation, many persons like Padmalochan, who spend their whole lives in the study of these things, some well versed in the six philosophical systems, some in three. Vaishnavacharan and Gauri might be in less, these two are in six. Came here and called me an incarnation. To be called an incarnation has become contemptible to me. What will they add to me by calling me such? There are 3 more paragraphs. I think we read it next on Monday because a little discussion has come to that. We read the introduction. Besides Padmalochan, the master met some other famous scholars from time to time. He told us now and again in the course of conversation the special noble qualities he saw in them. It will not be out of place here to narrate briefly the stories of a few such scholars. Important we should know, so Thakur's description. Yeah, impartial, proper judgment of these people. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupaka Acharyanam Acharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna.